So yeah, welcome. You're at an episode called Decoding the SEO Success Secrets, which is a webinar series where we break down the SEO strategies of popular software companies so that you can deploy them yourself. And the reason why I wanted to start this webinar series is because there's millions of SEO guides on the internet, and sometimes they can seem quite abstract or esoteric. And plus, sometimes they make it seem like there's only one way to do SEO. And so we kind of wanted to look under the hood of two companies who on the surface level look very similar. And you would think that they would have a very similar SEO approach, but they actually don't have a similar approach at all. And so the purpose of this is to get very practical, look under the hood of companies, and then make that a series if you guys love the content that we're providing. And so I see we have people from Poland, from Switzerland, from India, and from Belgium. So thank you all for tuning in.
And Canada. Sure. Okay. So my name is Andrew Stephen, and I am a co-founder of 3 SEO related companies. I'm at High Voltage SEO, based out of Phoenix in the US, and we are an SEO consultancy there. What we're kind of known for is the fact that my co-founder and the team have done over 400 different tests on the Google algorithm, isolating ranking factors and weighting those and working out the science, I guess, behind the algorithm. Been implementing those learnings into our client work that we do there. And also we use those learnings to build a SaaS tool called Page Optimizer Pro. So that's been running now nearly 4 years. It's got about 10,000 users. And it's basically an on-page analysis tool, which is using our algorithms to compare the page that you want to rank versus the top ranking competitor pages, and giving you guides as to how to go about that. And the third company is IMG, and that's an SEO online training platform. We currently have a little over 30 courses, and it's kind of like the Netflix for SEOs, where you pay like a monthly subscription and you get access to all the courses.
Sweet.
So that's me.
And I think it's important to notice that, as I said in the announcement, Andy's a good friend of mine. He's a person that I learn a lot of SEO tricks and strategies from, and I really appreciate his opinion. And so I really wanted him to kind of like spark the discussion about these two companies. Oh, someone is in a playground and not on mute. So if you can mute yourself, that would be awesome. Thank you. So yeah, my name is Viola. I run an SEO agency called Flow SEO. We mainly work with software companies and digital businesses, and we help them to rank on Google with a strategy that's heavily focused around content marketing. And if you want to learn more about my approach, you can also watch one of my courses on Andy's community, IMG, as well. All right, without further ado, let's dive in. If I'm allowed to switch the slide. No, there we go. There we go. So why did we pick Asana and Trello specifically? I work a lot in the startup space, and I think Asana and Trello are two companies that are very well known in the startup space. Firstly, because a lot of companies use them. So if you ask startups about their project management tools, these are often two names that come up. And then secondly, they are companies that have been very successful financially in terms of growing their revenue. And Trello even got acquired by Atlassian in 2017. And then Asana has been growing massively in the last few years, especially in the last 12 months. And this is interesting because they're only 10 and they're only about 10 years old, and Asana even a little bit younger. And so this really shows that they're a fast-moving company that heavily rely on them appearing in organic search. And I kind of wanted to highlight that and show you guys what you're up to. And so here on the bottom, we see a traffic chart from Asana, and we can see how massively they've grown from 2016 being almost nothing to 2021 being a huge player in the SEO space. So all right, now we got to figure out who is not on mute.
I think Safraj Lakdawa. Thank you very much.
Sweet. Thanks, guys. If you can stay on mute, I do want you to ask questions. Like, this is going to be interactive. But what we want to do for the question is basically unmute you for your question specifically, because otherwise, yeah, we have a whole lot of background noise. All
yeah,
right.
you can just preferably just put your hand, just raise your hand, and we'll hand the question over. Or if you prefer us to put it in the chat, we can do that too.
Exactly. So yeah, that's probably good. Let's do a quick housekeeping intermission whilst I'm fiddling here. Is like, we're going to do a little bit of a presentation where we're decoding the SEO strategy of these two companies. We're going to tell you the things that we've noticed and that we've learned. And then we're going to have like an official Q&A section where you can raise your hand. But feel free to put questions in the chat as we go along, because we're keeping an eye on the chat and we're also going to answer questions like that. All right. So Andy, I'll let you take it away with the first glance at the SEO strategy. Oh, no, I'm not going to let you take it away. I'm going to get started with the first glance at the project management space. So before we dive into what are their top performing pages, what are the strategies that they're having, I wanted to set the stage a little bit with 4 of the most well-known players in the project management tool space. There's Trello, there's Asana, and there's Notion, and there's Monday. And I've just run some basic SEO metrics. And probably the most interesting one is actually the bottom one, which is the organic traffic estimate by 2 SEO tools, Ahrefs and SEMrush. And it gives us an indicator that Trello is doing super, super well and probably has between 4 million and 4.5 million visitors every month. And then Asana is probably half as big as Trello when it comes to monthly visitors. And then you can see Notion and Monday are smaller when it comes to organic than that as well. And so that we wanted to use to set the stage that these are really 2 big players in the space. They're taking a lot of eyeballs on the SERPs. And how did that come about? All right, now, Andy, I'll let you go with the top pages of the 2 companies and what we can learn from them.
Sure, thanks. I just dived into the top 20 pages by traffic and looked at also the types of content that those top 20 spots consist of, and also the keywords that are driving them, and a few other things. This is not the full top 20, but it's just the top however many fitted on the page. I've got a spreadsheet which I can share afterwards for anyone looking to dive in deeper. But they tell a very different story between Trello and Asana, actually. So here you can see the top content for Trello.com, and it comprises not a lot of product related pages. There is obviously the homepage is always a top one, and then number 2, phasmophobia. That I found out is a fear of ghosts. So already questions like, why is that their second ranking page in terms of traffic? How does that fit into their strategy, which we're going to go into? Turns out that's actually a video game. More to come on that. Can we go to the next slide? Yep, that one. So here's Asana's top pages, and already we're seeing like it looks a bit different. Homepage first again, and then executive summary example. So something you think might be kind of like top of funnel content, then a lot of product related pages. What's kind of interesting here is you can even see, I think it's like number 7 or so, is actually Asana logo, one of their top traffic pages. So that's kind of showing you what the value of the Asana brand has been through all of the marketing activities they've been doing. They're very well known to the point where people searching for their logo is actually driving one of the most amounts of traffic to their website. And then you can see other variations of top of funnel content in there as well, like the OKR page. Can we go to the next slide? So this is kind of a summary of the top pages, and sorry, motorbike going past, and what makes up those top traffic pages in terms of the type of content. So brand and product related pages. Asana is absolutely killing Trello. Content. So the content marketing top of funnel and middle of funnel pieces are ranking well in Asana's traffic, not so well in Trello. Then the next section, the programmatic SEO, which is the other side of what we're here talking about today. This is, well, maybe I might actually just get you to interrupt, Viola, with what your definition of programmatic SEO is.
Right. So let's say programmatic SEO. So when people think about SEO, they often think about content, right? They think about that blog post that you're writing. They think about, you write a blog post about executive summary, and then you rank for that keyword executive summary by providing a unique article that is the best answer to the search query. And on the other end of the spectrum, there is the possibility to generate hundreds and thousands of pages, let's say automatically, and they all follow the same template or layout, and they're filled with variations of content or user-generated content. And so examples that I typically think about is, for example, Zapier, that has hundreds of pages for all the integration. So for example, Asana and Slack integration, Asana and Trello integration. No content writer went and sat down and wrote a guide about it. It's basically one of hundreds automatically generated pages that Zapier is putting up. And we're going to talk about how Trello is leveraging basically auto-generated pages and user-generated content, which makes the majority of their top ranking pages.
Yeah, that is essentially the key to their success, and that's why you can see that they've got 12 out of their top 20 pages are programmatically generated. And Asana, we're calling their apps and extension pages, which is like plug-in apps into the platform, like Google Drive and Slack and stuff like that. We're calling that their programmatic SEO play, but much less so presence in their top traffic pages. And then extensions and apps, we covered that. They're sitting around the same. I think they call them power. I can't find it right now. That's a different name that Trello gives them to Asana, but essentially they're the same thing. They're plugins. And then in terms of the total traffic and some other metrics here. So Trello, out of their top 20 pages, are generating significantly more amounts of traffic. And the keywords on average that they're targeting on those top 20 pages are a bit more difficult in the keyword difficulty scores, which is kind of interesting as well. And I think that is mostly because there's a lot of product pages in the Asana's top ranking pages, including their brand, right? So, and then lastly, the average CPC. This one is really interesting because it kind of tells the story of like what the point is that we're kind of bringing across today. Asana's average CPC on their top traffic pages is much, much higher, showing that the commercial value of the keywords they're ranking for is much greater than the top traffic pages from Trello. Next slide.
Yep. All right. Basically, after giving you a quick overview of what will you see when you look in the search, we want to take a deep dive. We're going to look at Asana in detail first, and then we're going to look at Trello in detail as well. And so the first thing to notice about Asana is, and which is something that Andy has been already hinting at, Asana's SEO success is largely based on content and creating good and valuable content. They're heavily focused on English-speaking countries, so they really perform best in the US. They do perform a little bit in Japan, Mexico, Germany, and France, but they're really not pushing translation. So the majority of what they do is written in English, and there's only a handful of core pages that are actually translated into non-English languages. And then Asana is really focusing also on the core value propositions of their tool and business, which means there's almost 2,700 keywords related to project management where you can find Asana as a search result. So they've created content around these specific topics, and they're outperforming Trello in this area that is ranking a lot less for the core of it, which is project management. And so even, for example, for the specific commercial intent keyword, project management software, Asana ranks for 336 variations. And so these are often the keywords that software companies and our clients really want to rank for, right? This is their dream. I'm a project management software. I want to be on top for project management software. I'm a accounting software for small businesses. I want to be on the top for accounting software for small businesses. The reason why it's so hard for them to make it in the top 3, though, is that Google knows that people have a commercial intent there, but they are often in the research phase. So the search results are quite mixed, and you will actually often find review and comparison sites. So even though Asana is doing really well for the keyword project management software, they're often outperformed by G2, Capterra, and these sites that basically either have buying guides and reviews for those pages. And it's basically Google catering to people's need to see several options and then making an educated decision about which software they want to go with. And then also what's interesting is we can say that Asana had a huge jump in revenue also last year, and they actually had a big shift in their messaging as well, because Asana has always been obviously about managing teams, managing projects, but with the COVID crisis and everyone going into home office, and even industries that never have done remote work and home office all of a sudden have been in the home office, they really started to promote themselves as a remote teamwork and digital collaboration tool. And they shifted their messaging around that quite a bit. And I think it's nice to see that they rank for more than 300 keywords related to teamwork and also 300 keywords related to task management. And it also shows a little bit that you can shift your focus and perspective on what you're doing with SEO, and it doesn't always have to take for ages. And they really made that shift last year as well, which pretty much exactly a year ago is when they started doing that.
Can I just make a comment on the point quickly from the last slide on project management software?
Yep.
One little tip if you're on the client side and looking to rank for those kind of middle of funnel or problem aware type keywords is to eyeball the search results and to have a look what other pages are ranking for those types of keywords. And like Viola said, Google understands the intent that most people are in the research phase, and it's most common that you're not going to find a lot of specific SaaS products sitting in those SERPs for their websites. It's going to be more comparison type sites being rewarded. So if you see that that's what's making up the majority of the SERPs, not necessarily don't target that keyword, but just keep in mind that you don't want to make that a silver bullet strategy where if that doesn't work, that you've got nothing else to back it up. But the message, look at what Google's rewarding and try and fit your strategy around what Google is rewarding instead of trying to fight against it, because you most likely won't win.
Exactly. And sometimes figuring out how can I improve my reviews in Capterra and G2? How can I be part of a listicle? How can I be featured in the top of the listicle? Might be a better strategy to get those eyeballs than actually trying to rank for that specific term. All right, to kind of like show some examples of what Asana is doing with their content, we've pulled up their top 5 non-branded organic pages. And so I will quickly pop into them. And so we can see that one of their best performing pages that they have is this, how to write an executive summary article. And we can see this is kind of your classic long form guide. You can see the keyword appears in the URL, it appears in the first headline. And then it basically starts here, what is an executive summary? And then it really goes into how do you use it? Why is it important for project management? I would say this is still top of the funnel content, branded content. This is still a strategy of creating touch points with people, building out a presence on the web. Of course, they do have internal links, linking and mentioning their product and linking to it. But really, this is more a question of generating touch points with your audience and being a presence in the space than probably straight up getting tons of signups for the actual app. Then the next one that they have is an interesting one, which is their use cases page, and they actually rank super well for the term task management. And you could think that task management would follow the same strategy as executive summary, which means creating a long form guide with the goal to create eyeballs. But Asana has been actually very smart with this, and they managed to rank a page that not just explain what task management is, but it also shows you how you can specifically do it with Asana. So this is a very good page that not only ranks for this keyword, what is task management, but actually has a quite high chance of converting into signups, because it really promotes how Asana is working for task management, what kind of companies they work with. It's full of call to actions. And so that's a really nice way to take a term that could be very top of funnel, but also and then make it very conversion focused page. Then just jumping in the other one, we can see the next one, right? Effective status report. This is another resource. Again, we see the story long form guide. And here they're a little bit more obvious, like with the try reporting for free with Asana with the call to action. But again, this is maybe a little bit more classic of what you think of when you think SEO, which is writing a long guide about topic. Same OKR key results, same long form resources. And then again, use cases, project management, similar story, again, very conversion focused page. And so these are outside their branded terms, the top 5 organic pages. And so which kind of leads us into the next thing is, which is how has Asana actually structured their website into hubs? Where do the resources actually live? How is the blog laid out? And I'm going to let Andy introduce that.
Thanks. Yeah, this is something that differs greatly to how Trello is ordering their content, which we'll show you shortly. This isn't all of the content hubs, but it's the main or the top 4 of them. So we'll go into each one separately in a sec, but we got resources, the blog, the templates hub, and the use cases. And I think Viola, you'll start with resources.
Yeah, I'll quickly talk about the resources. So the resource center, like I said, they're essentially long form skyscraper guides that they've put a lot of love and attention to. So they have 144 pages indexed for the resources. They get a good amount of links to those pages, which is good to see. But I think it's important to know that out of these 144 pages, 16 of them bring more than 1% of traffic each. So maybe like 16% or so of overall organic traffic comes from those resource pages. So it's really paying off for them to write those long guides, because actually a huge percentage of them ends up ranking super well. And so, really fighting with my navigation here. And so, and then the second hub that they have is the blog. And the blog has a different layout, as you can see, and it also has a different style of posts. Compared to the guides, the blog posts are much shorter, and not all of them are SEO content. So when you go to the blog, you will see a lot of content pieces that do not have a specific keyword. And a lot of it is industry sites, interviews, webinar recap, feature updates. So on the blog, they're really playing the brand game more than just a pure keyword game. But it's still working for their SEO efforts, because the blog actually also collects a lot of like referring domains and help them build out their authority. And also the blog is their opportunity to create supporting content for those resources. And the blog posts often link to the resources. And so they have a very different approach. They have all the guides and long form articles in the resources, and then everything that is a little bit shorter, a little bit more branded, lives on the blog right now.
So the next one is the templates hub, and I'm not sure how well you can see that, but basically it's made up of a bunch of Asana templates that you can access and try out yourself for different industries and different types of work.
Trying to get there, sorry. And by that, I'm messing up the slides, but keep talking.
Great. So this is really great. I would say this is actually a programmatic play in itself, because it is quite a scalable, templatable SEO strategy. They've only got like 10 examples here, but you could create them for many more. types of use cases. And this is great middle of funnel traffic for people that are actually already in the market for some sort of project management solution. And then Asana has created great pages which are really driving the prospect into seeing Asana as the solution to their needs, with like a trial and showing exactly how you can use the product for the search intent. The next one is use cases. So / uses there. And again, this is middle of funnel type of traffic, problem aware kind of prospects. And this one's really good because it's ranking for terms like, there's a lot of pages in here that are ranking for terms like project management and Kanban board and agile management and types of project management that you can use Asana for. Could you just go back to the previous one quick? Both these hubs, the use cases and the templates, they're generating around the same amount of traffic. It's not insignificant. Not a lot of the pages fit onto the top 20 pages, but they're generating a lot. Like for 20 pages on use cases, they're generating 20,000 visitors a month. And that's actually making up nearly 10% of their overall traffic just through these. And it's about the same for templates as well. More pages though. This is an interesting thing we found. So the Kanban board, if you don't know what that is, it's kind of a vertical column style of agile project management, where typically tasks move from not done through to in progress through to complete. And this is really originally what Trello was built for. That is the core of Trello's product. But actually, Asana outranks them for the term Kanban board, appearing with a video on page 1 and one of the use cases pages in position 11. So yeah, they're beating Trello at their own game with this one.
Yeah.
Another page which we found, which was ranking in Asana's top ranking pages, was actually Asana versus Jira. This is getting a lot of traffic, and we thought that was interesting because Jira is actually another one of Atlassian's project management tools, and it seems like more people are actually comparing Asana with Jira than with Trello based on the what we see in the traffic reports. But we thought that was a bit weird because they kind of got different uses. But maybe we will have to do that one in a comparison again next time. That's actually the Jira site is actually part of the Atlassian site, whereas the Trello site is an independent site, probably because it was acquired. So in summary for Asana, I'm going with this as like a 60% content SEO play and 20% programmatic and 10% product. The programmatic is with those template pages that we went through for the various types of uses for Asana templates, and the apps and integrations pages. And you've obviously been through all those content hubs, so you know what we're talking about there. And they've also built up a lot of product and brand related pages as well. I think it's a deliberately very diversified SEO strategy that they've put together using different like top of funnel, middle of funnel types of content, mixing in some programmatic, which hasn't performed anywhere near as well in terms of traffic as Trello, but it has probably more strategy behind it, as you'll see. They've invested an enormous amount in content marketing. that's for sure. And in terms of the amount of traffic it's generated, you'll see that it hasn't generated as much traffic, but I would argue it's much more valuable traffic. Out of interest in the research, I signed up for like a white paper or some sort of gated content, and I never got any follow-up emails. And I also never ended up in any retargeting funnels by either Trello or Asana during this process, which I thought was weird because I'm obviously researching a lot of parts of their products.
I'm not surprised at this at all. My assumption is that compared to e-commerce, software companies often don't have the same focus on email marketing, but they really appreciate SEO. My guess is if we would have researched Monday, they would have retargeted us a lot. Like they're playing a big paid ads game. And can I quickly add to the summary of Asana? I think what's interesting about them is like they're really well positioned, right? They rank for project management, they rank for digital collaboration, teamwork, etc. They really honed in on their niche, and they really create a lot of content in and around that, and they're very focused in that. And so I would say Asana has a very content marketing approach to SEO, and it's also a lot of the things that I do when I work with clients. And so I think in terms of, like you said, creating touch points throughout the entire funnel and keeping a conversion focus with their use case pages, with their templates, etc. I think Asana is doing a really, really good job. And despite only having half the amount of traffic from Trello, I feel like they're a little bit of a poster child for SEO. I feel like they really have a lot of things to learn from that they did really well. Shall we dive into Trello?
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, we're like 34 minutes in, so we gotta go through this effectively. So basically, Trello's success secret is the compound effect. So to kind of like take that away and or give the spoiler away. Trello also performs super well in the English-speaking market, so they do super well in the US, UK, Australia, Canada, and India. But they already are very different, and they also do focus on project management. So they do have 755 keywords related to project management that they rank for. They have about 490 keywords that they rank for related to Kanban, which is really the core of their product. So I'm kind of surprised, I think, in this way that it's only 490 for Kanban. And then as we saw, also getting outperformed in those areas by Asana. But this is mainly because they have a very different strategy. And the part one where their strategy is different is that they actually have a multi-language approach. And so you can see on the right, kind of like the list of languages that they have keywords ranking for. And so they actually translated a huge chunk of their pages. They have native content in Vietnamese, they have content in Russian, like the screenshot there. They have Spanish content, they have German content, they have French content. And to give a very bold overall statement, I think in most cases, it's probably easier to rank in pretty much any language than it is to rank in English. And so part of the reasons why they have such a huge amount of traffic and so much more than Asana is that Asana is largely focusing on English language, and Trello has all of these other languages and is probably doing quite well for them. So even though they might not be the strongest in English, they're doing super well in a lot of other languages. And that's already a big strategic different approach. And I think if you do have a strong market in any other country and there you have the budget or opportunity to create content, that is actually can be actually a quite profitable SEO play, because it's probably going to be easier to rank for this just because it's going to be less competitive. And then the next thing, and that we want to talk about when we talk about programmatic play of Trello, is their public boards. And so we saw that one of the top performing pages was that thing with the fear of ghost. They also rank super well for the term Project Jojo, which is a game that also 45,000 people look for every single month. And so this is basically the setting, right? When you create a Trello board, you can set it to private, you can set it to within your organization, or you can set it to public, where everyone on the internet, including Google, can see this board. And this is what a lot of online communities have used to organize themselves in the gaming space, for example, to share their strategy and cheats. And this is why Trello ranks for many seemingly random terms, is there are those public boards ranking. And you can see how that's a radically different approach from anything that Asana is doing. But to kind of like quickly wrap that up is when the Trello does create content, what kind of content are they actually creating? So I've pulled up the top 5 non-branded organic pages as well. And so let's quickly pop into them. And so one of their top performing pages, and pretty much the only one of their content pages that brings in traffic, is this article. Firstly, you can see it's from 2019, so it hasn't been updated in 2 years. And it's about taking a sabbatical. And I can see how that's somehow related to working, and then having a project management tool is also somehow related to working, but it's still a pretty far stretch from someone wanting to go to a sabbatical to someone signing up for a project management tool. And this is kind of a little bit similar with all their top performing content pages. They have an article on how to overcome limiting belief. They have an article on productive morning routines. And they have here social loafing, how to get rid of it from your team. And then they have an article, this one, how to use Pomodoro to be more productive at life. I think for me, that's the one that's maybe the closest related to managing a project, being effective. But really, they are all kind of in the space of working, but they're really not as close. So for example, if Asana is talking about a use case and how to use a task management tool, etc., we can see that an article like this is way more off than the use case pages. Chance of them actually getting leads from this is also way lower. And so now I need to kind of like pop into my settings for a second and turn my camera back on because my battery is running low. So I'm going here, built in. Okay, can you see me again? Nope. Let's see, where am I in my preferences?
While you're doing that, I might start on the next slide. You can't see my screen, but oh, great.
Yep, popping back in here. Oh, there we go.
So Viola's just taking you through kind of the blog content related part of the traffic funnel. And this is an example of one of the public boards. I've never heard of this game before, I'll be honest, but a lot of people seem to know it because this page generates about 50,000 visits a month. It's all 100% user-generated content, and it ranks #1 for the term Project Jojo, which is some kind of computer game of some sort. I apologize that I've never used it, or I don't really know what it is, but Trello's public board strategy is full of pages like this. This is not even the top traffic public board. It's amazing content because of the user-generated nature of it. So it's naturally going to be very rich in semantic terms that are related to the topic. And of course, it's designed to fulfill user intent because it is in fact generated by the user themselves. So it is terrific in terms of content. Strategically, it's doubtful whether this is actually too relevant to the traffic that they're trying to drive into their product. And the other thing is that with most of their pages that drive traffic being made up of public boards, it's not really their content. Like, they host the content, but this content is actually owned by the community of the game. And I've seen on a few occasions, the pages have been redirected somewhere else. So they've moved them to, say, Reddit or somewhere else. And as soon as that happens, Trello just loses 50,000 visits a month like that. So that's also kind of a weakness of this strategy. So we call this the compound effect. I just wanted to dive a little more into this because it's kind of interesting. It's based around this fundamental law of how Google actually rewards websites with traffic. So we use this in our consulting firm, and we didn't discover it, but we've kind of turned it into our own. It was originally published on a blog post by Chris Carter, an SEO, well-known SEO. And his belief is basically that Google rewards websites based on how much traffic they're currently generating. So he created essentially like an equation to work out how quickly you can rank for a keyword based on how much traffic your website currently gets. And it goes like, if your website, for instance, generates about 100 visits a day on average, and you average that out over like a month or two, then essentially Google has put you in a tier of like 50 to 100, we call them. We've got a whole kind of grid system of tiers for rewarding with traffic. If you're generating 100 visits a month, 100 visits a day, then you can easily target relevant keywords that are generating around 100 searches a month. If you create content around those keywords that are generating around 100 searches a month, you will very quickly start getting impressions and clicks on those. Now, if you think about Trello doing this across, they have about 6 million pages, most of them being public boards, and each of them are only generating a little trickle of traffic. But as a whole, they make up the bulk of all the traffic that Trello's getting. And every time a new one of these boards is added and generates a little bit more traffic, the tier of keywords which Google is going to reward Trello for increases, which basically means that the keywords that are more competitive become easier for them to rank for. So while this is a completely random SEO strategy and it's not really targeted towards prospects at all, because of the sheer authority that this strategy has put on their website, if you look at their authority scores, it would actually be very easy for them to rank for a lot of high commercially intent keywords because of that sheer authority which Google has given them from all that traffic. So yeah, I just wanted to run through how that works with Trello and explain that. Now, I'm just going to move on to the summary quickly. We've got a little more on Trello and Asana after this, but just to summarize Trello so far, this is definitely almost entirely programmatic play. I've given it a 90% programmatic play, a 5% product brand play, and 5% content. So it's very weak in the other areas of its strategy. Now, I don't even know if they planned this programmatic SEO strategy with the full understanding of what they were doing, but it has been incredibly successful in the amount of sheer traffic that it's been able to generate for them with a very, very small investment other than the costs of the hosting, which, you know, they're free users, so they're not paying for that. But in saying that, I would doubt whether the traffic that they're generating is bringing in much in the way of like commercial value. I doubt if it's bringing many people into their funnel, whether they're getting many trial signups directly from this content. But in saying that, there's also something brilliant about this, because if you think about the main intent with SaaS companies and their funnels is to get people to try their product. That is usually at the bottom of their funnel, is trying to generate trial signups. And while Trello isn't doing that so well, they are getting thousands and thousands of people every single month to use and try their product without them even realizing that they want it. So in a way, that is kind of brilliant, even if it's accidental.
And Andy, you and I have talked about this quite a bit in the last week, right? And I think for me, the public boards, in terms of getting commercially valued SEO traffic, it's probably not the right strategy, but I think it's a very good brand play with everyone trying out Trello, with everyone having used Trello in their free time, and everyone who's a private person also has a work. And so there is a certain, I think, secondary effect of those people when they do need to set up a project management tool, if they do need to organize something. Trello is the one they've already used and they might already be familiar with, and it might be the one that comes up top of mind when they are ready to make a buying decision. And so I think whilst it's a little bit of a wonky SEO play in terms of targeting, it might be actually a very, very good brand play that they did there.
And I'm sure that Trello is the #1 project management system used by people in the computer game community.
Yep.
If nothing else, they own that.
Yep, exactly. All right, I'm going to let you give us a word on link building. Kind of has to be your word.
I'll try and get through this in a couple of minutes. We couldn't do an SEO webinar without discussing the off-page side of the strategy. So here's a little bit on what the top pages have been doing in terms of link building. Next. Firstly, we looked at what's called a topical trust flow. This is a metric from Majestic, and what it tries to do is it tries to look at the categories and subcategories of the businesses which are linking back to these websites, and it gives them scores, like weighted scores. And what you can see here, looking at all 4 of the competitors we analyzed, Trello, we won't go through all of it in detail, but Trello, the highest score was from computers, software, internet, which is highly relevant to a SaaS product. Asana, the highest score was from reference and education. Notion, computer data formats, business, transport, and logistics for Monday. So there's like not a tight connection between any of these other than the top scoring one from Trello, which is kind of interesting. We usually use these topical trust flows when we're doing like a link building strategy. What we look to do is we want to emulate the footprint of topical trust flows that are coming from the winning sites. So if Trello is winning all the keywords and we see that they're trying to rank, that they've got high scores coming from the computers, software, internet category from their backlinks. So a lot of the websites that are linking to them are in that category, then we'll try to build links also in that category. But a lot of the rest of it doesn't really make sense. Next one. Just an example of the referring domains that are coming into Asana's top pages. So between like 1 and nearly 300 referring domains coming into their top content. Just an example. Going into Trello next. Next slide. Oh, yeah, great.
Trello.
Thanks. So some of the top pages there, relatively few referring domains, but if we go on to the next slide, I've just summarized it all very easily for us. So what we see across the top performing content in terms of the traffic is, on average, Asana is getting about 100 referring domains and Trello is getting double that, more than double that, actually. And that's purely, I think, just because of the nature of the kind of content on these boards, that a lot of people want to link to it from different gaming blogs and stuff like that, right? This is a really kind of loose metric, the quality of the referring domains. I just got it by dividing the number of referring domains by the authority scores. And so you can kind of get an idea as to the authority of the sites that are linking to them. So on average, the sites that are linking to Asana content are much more authoritative than the sites that are linking to Trello, which kind of makes sense as well. And the relevancy with the topical trust flows, we covered that already.
Nice. Thanks.
One other thing I just wanted to note on the link building is that sorry, motorbike again. We have actually used public Trello boards for, we don't currently use them, but we have previously used public Trello boards for our own link building for our client sites for generating like links from Trello, basically. We build optimized public boards for specific keywords from the client. Sometimes they get linked to, other times they don't get linked to, but either way, we're generating links from Trello through to our client sites, which I thought that was kind of interesting as well, because we have actually used the public boards as part of our own SEO strategy.
Nice. All right. I kind of wanted to kind of like wrap this up a little bit with the question is kind of like, which SEO strategy is for you, right? Because it's always nice to hear what is Asana and Trello doing and what does it come from, but I'm sure you're all eager to draw learnings for your own strategy. And there have already been some good comments in the chat talking about how Trello could leverage their authority and their domain rating to actually write good guides and write focused content, and they're kind of like missing that opportunity. So before you kind of start thinking about what you want to be doing for your SEO strategy, I quickly wanted to recap the 3 things that we talked about today. Number 1 is largely focused around what Asana has been doing. They do SEO-driven content marketing, and they make sure to meet their customers in every stage of the funnel. So whether they're researching general information, whether they're researching and reviewing tools, or whether they're ready to sign up, Asana makes it really easy to generate touch points. They're all over the SERPs. They rank for a huge variety of keywords, and they're very focused around that specific niche. The second strategy that we saw today is Trello translating the core of their websites into a multitude of languages and ranking extremely well with that strategy. So that is always something to think about, whether translating your website is cheaper than building it out, or what are the markets that you already have traction in, what are the markets where your business development team and sales team is already working in, and that might benefit from having translated content. I'm being German. I know Germans love German content. I think French love French content. So there might be something, even if you have a business development or sales team, you can probably make their life easier by having a translated website as well to kind of win those markets. And probably you can have a very nice SEO play in those markets. If you're banging your head against some very competitive terms in English, there might be a chance you might win it in another language. And then thirdly is what we loosely call programmatic approach, which is finding some sort of like systemized, scalable way to create tons and tons of pages. And Asana is using that a tiny bit with their templates, with their use cases, with their integrations. But Trello has really been driving that by just having that one tick box that says public board indexed by Google that allowed them to create millions of pages, get links, get mentions, get users to trial out the tool, but also in the eyes of Google, grow your page count, grow your keyword count, and overall organic traffic by leveraging that communities that are already out there. And so not all software companies are created equal, and not all of them needs to follow all 3 strategies. And it kind of depends a little bit of what you're doing, what's the right decision for you. And so maybe pop some questions in the chat that you have about the things that we've been talking about. And also, I'd be curious to know what you think, what are the SEO strategies that you're working on, how you make those decisions with your company. And use the chat to let us know your questions. And I'm happy to stay around a few more minutes afterwards to answer questions. I don't know, Andy, how long you can basically stay around, but I'm happy to stay a few more minutes to answer your questions. So feel free to use the chat to get your questions in so we can talk about what we all just saw. And then let's skip that for a second, but you can obviously reach Andy and me both via email as well to talk about this stuff further, to talk about the SEO strategy that you're doing and what's working and what's not working for you. And I'd be curious to see where you're at. All right. Thank you, Gerhard, for saying that we have a useful and valuable presentation. Actually, I have one question here. Andy, I think you already wrote in the chat, but you maybe quickly want to vocalize this as well. Are you looking at link growth over time, or are you mainly looking at absolute numbers?
this research, this specific analysis was not looking at link growth over time. We didn't go deep enough on this occasion, but it's obviously an important factor looking at the velocity of growth as well, because I personally believe that fresh links are worth more than old tired links.
Yeah, agreed. I agree with that as well. And to just kind of like, we had like one kind of like clothing thoughts, right? Like which strategy is for you? I think one is kind of like, what does your business model lend itself to, right? And I said that before. I said, for example, I think Zapier is an amazing, business model that lends itself to programmatic SEO. Even G2 and Capterra as well lend themselves to programmatic SEO quite well, because Zapier has an interest having all those pages about all possible integrations up, and they actually generate signups for them. So we've been talking about Trello saying like, oh, maybe they haven't been that smart with their public boards. The keywords are not that targeted. How are they actually getting people to use the tool? But I don't want you to think that programmatic SEO is not a good idea. I do think there's a lot of like software tools that really lend themselves to this approach, and where it really makes sense to build out those pages. And for example, I have 2 clients that are, let's say, in the report space, and they have hundreds and thousands of pages of like list of industries with different keywords variations, and they basically have a page template for that, and they fill that with part of the information that they have in their paid reports, and they build their entire website around that strategy. And it makes a lot of sense because they rank for those keywords. People get a teaser of the report that is super interesting, and then click to buy it via what is essentially e-com solution. So please don't think that programmatic SEO is never a good idea. It's just an interesting way how Trello did it, and they might have that secondary benefit of a brand play and getting all those people to use the tool. That might be way more beneficial than ranking for project management software.
Are there any other examples that you can think of that you really like that have done programmatic well, Viola?
Yeah, well, I would say I like that. Economic reporting, Zapier, G2. You mentioned before, Alternative 2 is what you talked about, which I think is a good one. And I think especially when it comes to software, especially the more integrations and integration partner you have, I think that's really a good part to start thinking about it.
One way to get into it, if you haven't thought about it until now and you're a software vendor, you don't have to be a software vendor, but it tends to work quite well in that space, is the templates approach. Like we saw that Asana have used it. It works for so many different types of SaaS products. We've worked for quite some time with FreshBooks. They do accounting software, and they drive so much quality traffic, like really good user intent or searcher intent traffic that's looking for templates for various types of industries. So for invoices. So for instance, graphic designer invoice template, or home builder invoice template, every kind of template you can imagine. There's sometimes just 20 or 30 people a month searching for that kind of template. In other cases, there's several hundred or even thousand looking for those templates. And they've had an incredible success building out these template pages where you can download a Word doc version, a Google Sheet version. And we've used that on a couple of different clients in different ways. It's an easy way to get into it if you can think of templates that you can create.
I have 2 thoughts on this, actually. I think one company who does this nicely is actually the time tracking tool Topical, because they rank also for all kinds of like business related terms. And often these are terms with the keyword template. And then they also actually provide you the template. They don't just have a guide that tells you that the template is important, but they actually meet search intent and give you a template. So I think they are a great example as well. And then Alexei was just saying in the chat, it gets especially interesting if the templates can be user generated. And I think the tool in project management that immediately comes to mind is Notion. Notion has done a really good job at building out a community. And so, for example, if you look for content calendar template, Notion, etc. There's a bunch of people who are creating templates in Notion. So Notion, the company, doesn't even have to put in the effort to think about how to set up the perfect content calendar. Their users are already doing that, and they are also so proud, and and they want to share their template, and they link into it, and they mention it on social. So if there's an angle where you can make it a user-generated template play, I think that's very interesting as well. And then Alexei also said in the chat that GitHub is a good example for that as well, where that works for them. That they not only have the templates, but they also have the likes and stars for the templates so that people know which one is actually the best. And then Khan just said Figma and Webflow play this as well with the user-generated templates.
Yeah, excellent examples, Alex and Khan.
Do you have any other questions in terms of like which strategy to pick, or any of the things that we presented today, or how it came that Trello has twice as much as traffic as Asana? Well, if not, is there anything that is on your heart that you still wanted to talk about? Maybe how you choose the strategy, or anything else that you feel like needs to be said in order to complete the session today?
No, I would just like to say a huge thanks to Anna, our designer, who put the slides together. And thanks to you as well for having me. I really enjoyed it, and hope we can continue on the series and deep dive into some other SEO strategies used by different kind of market leaders.
Yeah, if you can send us an email or send us a LinkedIn message and let us know how you liked the webinar, what was the part that you liked best, where would you want us to go deeper. I'm super curious, because I've been really wondering like what is some type of content that is like interesting, unique, and actionable that I can present and teach. And so this idea of decoding SEO strategies is very dear to my heart, but I want to understand if it makes sense for you as an attendee. So if you can let us know the feedback via email or on LinkedIn, I really appreciate it. And I'm probably going to put on something like that like in a month or so. And so keep your eyes out, follow us on LinkedIn to see when the next event is coming up. And then there was a question, will there be a recording link? Yes, I'll upload this recording to my YouTube channel. I'll also upload it to the Flow SEO blog, and then I'll obviously share it on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is really, following on LinkedIn is really the best place to stay updated, both about the recording and then about future webinars. And you should have already received an email from me where I will send out the replay as well. So